hey, this is what we understand about your growth strategy based on what we learned in your 10K. And here's what we, think we understand about things that can cause, you obstacles or frustrations. And here's where we can address those. Would you be interested in hearing about that?
That is phenomenal. Talk about a bucket of opportunity, because technology is probably 5 of those top 10. Hi, everybody. I am Dave Elsner, the Tech Sales Coach, and we are here for our next Sales Skills Learning Workshop. And I'll tell you, if you're a seller that sells into a large corporation, you have to get to know their business really well. And that includes reading their annual reports and their 10Ks. And Shannon and I used to work together, and he would train my teams on how to read a 10K and then how to apply that to do more business with the customer. And so, Shannon, brief introduction.
Oh, thank you, Dave. Shannon Vanderford. I have been in sales for 30 years, in technology sales for about 25, and a fair amount of that leading teams that are selling into larger corporations, true enterprise type or verticals. And there's definitely some different skills that are required. You can't sell into a large enterprise account like you do emerging business. So, I've built a practice around helping sales teams navigate those waters.
Yeah, it's interesting. Stephen Maddock does, that sales engineering training, and they surveyed like 10,000 executives, and they said, what is the most important attribute you want from your sales team? And the answer 80% of the time was, they need to know my business.
You're exactly right. And, there's a bunch of ways that you can, glean information, but historically, technology sales training has done a poor job of giving their sellers the resources or making them aware of the resources. So often they'll go into the customer and, the customer wants you to know their business. Instead, we spend the first meeting in what we call a discovery call, basically interrogating them about what's going on in their business, their industry, trying to get nuggets that we can in turn, use. You think about it, if you're doing it, so are all of your competitors. So, our customers are having these conversations and they're not getting any value out of those first ones. It's all a very selfish ask usually by sellers. So, understanding that, and actually, something I learned sitting through one of your field trainings, is the difference between white hat and black hat salespeople, and some of the behaviors that we can do to separate ourselves from the black hat salespeople and the ones that have that reputation that customers don't trust. And it starts with be responsible and respect your customer's time. Don't make them answer questions that you can already go find the answers to. And again, there's dozens of sources of information, and we could spend an entire week talking about how you utilize different sources. But one that I found extremely valuable, particularly selling to publicly traded companies, is how to read their 10K. And
awesome.
Everybody's familiar with 10Ks. A lot of folks, when I ask, are you familiar? They say yes, because they've looked at them from an investor's perspective. But they don't understand how to put it through the lens of how do I understand what's going on in my customer's environment, and how do I look for information that will help me formulate an account strategy. And oftentimes, you can come away with a good 6-month account strategy plan just by reading a 10K. So
it's interesting you say, come in and interrogate the customer. You're spot on. They don't want to give you those answers. They expect that you're going to do your research ahead of time and come prepared with questions relevant to whatever it is their goals are. And so what do you look for in a 10K?
Well, start off the basic stuff that you would expect. You're looking at, where's their business trending? Are they growing? Are they shrinking? So you look at their forward-looking statements. What are their goals and objectives? Those are things that we always ask in meeting. What are you trying to accomplish over the next quarter, the next year? Well, they're going to tell you in there. And you're going to hear it not just from an IT director or VP, you're going to hear it from the board and executive suite on what the priorities are for the organization looking forward. They're gonna tell you how. How are they growing? And I'll jump in with a really good real world example of things that you can look for. We were researching a publicly traded bank, and they stated that part of their growth strategy was through acquisitions. They were going to acquire a multitude of smaller banks and roll them up. Well, a lot of folks would just skip over that. Well, what we decided to do was look at the top 15 things that cause mergers and acquisitions to fail or be less profitable than they had hoped for. And then we took that list and identified how many of those can we address with the technologies and services that we offer within our organization. And then instead of calling into IT, we called the vice president of M&A and said, hey, this is what we understand about your growth strategy based on what we learned in your 10K. And here's what we, think we understand about things that can cause, you obstacles or frustrations. And here's where we can address those. Would you be interested in hearing about that?
That is phenomenal. Talk about a bucket of opportunity, because technology is probably 5 of those top 10. Integration goes bad or migration goes bad. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a great win. Within one meeting, we had our next meeting was with the CIO, and that was an account that we just couldn't break into. So you look at things like that, and you'll find other things. Who do they consider competitors? This one again, I can honestly say this is probably the best one I've ever found, and you're not likely to find too many nuggets like this. But it was a retail clothing company, and they cited in their 10K who they felt their top 4 competitors were. And it was an aspirational statement. They basically were saying, these are the companies that we want to be like. It just happened that those 3 companies were customers of ours. So imagine that conversation of going in and saying, hey, you want to say that you want to do business and grow like these folks. Well, we're already helping them. How would you like to hear how we're doing that? So again, another easy conversation. But really where you can learn the most is publicly traded companies have to state not only what their goals and objectives are, but so they can't be seen as duping the uninitiated investor. Right. They have to, after they tell you all the great things they're going to do, they have to list out all the reasons why they think they could possibly fail. So, those are called safe harbor statements, or, they'll just call them risk factors. Well, there's your whole host of, things that answer the question that I hate to hear. What keeps you up at night? That cliche question. Well, there it all is. And they'll tell you from legislation to competition, to workforce, maintenance. They'll list all of the things out there. And again, you take that list and cybersecurity, of course, is a big one. Now you see it in all of them. For sure. And you just look at, if I look at what they say are their possible, risk factors, how many of them can I address with my technologies or services? And then you pick the ones that are most likely and use that to prep your first call. And it changes the dynamic of the call. Instead of coming in and saying, hey, tell me about your business. Again, the customer sitting there knowing that you're just going to use what they say against them. You've shown a sincere interest in what they do. You've shown that you respect their time, and you've come in not just with questions, but you've already come in with some ideas. You're bringing value in your first meeting instead of waiting until the second or third to bring value. And even if you're wrong, even if some of your assumptions are wrong, it changes the dynamic of the conversation, again, from you asking and a selfish perspective to you attempting to aid. And, the first person to bring value always wins. And it sets you more as someone that's on their team, or at least wants to be on their team, as opposed to, someone that is there to get something from them.
Yeah. And that's interesting. I did read a study, like 74% of buyers go with the person that adds value to their research to discover how to fix their problems. And so coming in with that kind of information is huge. So do they get specific, like we want to increase customer experience by improving our contact center, or do you see specific things like that, or?
It varies. Sometimes you get just a wealth of information depending on how their 10Ks are written. Right. Some of them you come away and go, well, maybe I didn't get as much out of that as I could, but they will be specific about certain technologies. Maybe not to call center, but you'll be able to discern things like, well, we need to provide better customer service. We're increasing our staff around that. We are creating call centers to address that. You will see things like that. They'll address supply chain. They'll address shrinkage if it's a retail, lost, stolen items, inventory problems. Of course, there's always technologies to address that.
Yeah.
So other things too, they'll talk about, their competition, maybe not aspirational, but certainly if you've identified trends or things about one organization through doing the research, their competition probably faces the same thing. And, if you're going to create a vertical, well, now you're ahead of the game. You've got information and insights on a number of companies. So you can just turn right around and use that to on your next call.
That's killer. Anything else to add?
Yeah. Again, some of the things that we'll look for is who are the executives. And the reason you do that is in these size organizations, certain executives have different areas of expertise. Some are growth executives, so they're some are M&A. Some are brought into, they're turnaround executives. Yep. And that can predict some of the behaviors within the organization just based on if there's changes in the C-suite. The other thing that you look for is how do they position themselves? Are they winning in their market share because they're a low cost provider, or do they perceive themselves as a value add, and the setting the benchmark, so they're not concerned about selling on price. And the reason that you do that is most companies will purchase the way they position themselves and sell themselves. It's hard to be a value add player when you are cutting corners on everything when you're procuring. So you can look at that. It helps just in a negotiation. So not even just prospecting into a company, but as you're communicating with them. A good example of this is it was an enterprise Fortune 150 company that we were having a quarterly business review with. So of course I read their 10K prior to going into it. And we met with their buyer, who was sitting down and telling us that our margins were too high, and that he gave us a laundry list of resources that we needed to add, and then proceeded to tell us that our margins were too rich. Well, I had read his 10K.
Their job, right? Their job is to save the company money. So
it is, and it's easy as a salesperson to cave under that. I just happened to have read their 10K the night before and looked to see that they are enjoying a 5-year high of 70% sales margins. So I'm looking at that, I said, okay, let's discuss that, but let's be realistic about my margins versus what you guys enjoy. And you can change the discussion. It's not adversarial, but be aware of what's going on, and it, no matter who you're speaking with, it helps improve your positioning, because you're not just a salesperson there. You're a business person, and you're there to do business with them, and you're there to help them with their business. And it starts with understanding and knowledge.
I loved your comment about researching the executives, because I like to look at their work history, because it gives you a flavor for the technology that they support and the things that they do to help grow or improve productivity or what have you. And so there's a lot of information to be found by diving into those executives. So
yeah, I have yet to have a customer not appreciate the level of effort that you've put into it. And there was a again, Fortune 500 company where I was, at that point, it was a sales VP, and I was accompanying a young seller, and he had done his 10K research on the company. And there was a senior VP, who had sat in the back while we were talking, and we had shared a little bit about our organization. And he sprung a question on us. He said, well, great, What can you tell us about our organization? And it was perfect. The seller said, I'm glad that you asked. And he said, this is what I've learned about your organization. And I had some questions about, why are you doing this? I see you're going to do this and you're exiting these markets and moving to that. And he had a genuine curiosity. And the senior VP said, I've been asking that question of sellers coming into our organization for 20 years. And he said, and you're the first person that ever had that detailed of an answer. And then in turn had questions for me because you were curious. And people are interested in people who are interested in them. And, that's a great way to start your relationship, again, as opposed to just asking questions. Again, they know it's for our own benefit, not theirs.
Yeah, I say, care more, sell more. And if you care that much to dive that deep, prior to a meeting, they're going to respect the hell out of you right from the get-go.
It is.
Yeah.
It takes time. It's not easy, and it takes practice. What I typically do is when I'm teaching new sellers, I'll have them pick a 10K and I'll have them go do their own research. After I explain to them what you're looking for, how you use it, I'll have them do one, and then I'll have them send me theirs highlighted with their notes, and I'll go through and do one. And I always find way more things than they do. You have to be creative and look at it with a different mind. You look at it like you are trying to solve a puzzle. I'm looking for problems that I can solve in this, and you'll come up with at least a nugget or two. Not all of them, again, are as wealthy with information, but you'd be surprised at things that you learn.
Right on. Now, what about if they're not a publicly traded company?
That's a great question, and one that I get every session when I'm doing these trainings. You can still benefit. So, if you're targeting an enterprise that is not publicly traded, what you do is you look at their SIC code and you determine what industry they're in, and pick a publicly traded company that's in that same vertical, that has the same profile, and you do your research on that. You're not going to get, obviously the specifics from that particular organization, but you're going to be able to draw some inferences based on legislation maybe that is coming against them. Are there any market trends? Is it emerging? Is it a shrinking market that you can still use? And you open up the dialogue with that type of a customer with saying, here's some things that I understand about your industry, or I think I understand about your industry, instead of this is what I understand about your company. And you can still, it's still a warmer conversation. It still shows that you're interested and you know something, or you've at least taken the time to try and learn something about their industry. And again, even if you're wrong, they'll gently correct you, and then you can talk about something that is relevant. But it's you're still coming into them with some understanding and hopefully some ideas.
Well, like you said in the beginning, there's 20 ways to search a customer. I love the resource one, looking at, an IT person, let's say, if they're my first point of contact, looking, did they write any blogs? Did they contribute on LinkedIn in any way? And what were their thoughts? And so those thoughts then lead you into knowledge as you walk into that meeting with that IT executive or what have you. So yeah, plenty of Google searches, I'm sure sales tools, like sales, what is it? Zoom info, those will give you glimmers of things. But it really comes down to research. But I'll tell you, these 10Ks sound super valuable.
It is. Again, it's one of the resources, but there's nothing better than getting the customer's goals and objectives and, risk factors straight from the C-level. You can quote them on it. And, you're getting it straight from the source. What better ways to gather your customer intel?
Now, I know you did these trainings for my teams back in our Nexus days. Is it something you're still active with? Is all the material still together, ready to go?
It is, yeah. I've done them for a number of organizations after you and I've worked together, either organizations that I've been part of or organizations that are just trying to develop their sales teams as a training. Do them online for folks now. Just did one a couple of weeks ago for a CEO that I've known for some years.
Excellent. Well, if somebody's interested, how can they reach you, Shannon?
Reach out to me on LinkedIn. And if you do reach out on LinkedIn, what I'll do is I'll send you, 10 things to look for in a 10K and how to use them. And then, we'll have a conversation and see if it's something that you're interested in pursuing.
Awesome. It's Shannon Vanderford on LinkedIn, and then we'll take it from there. Hey, man, really appreciate you doing this. I know my audience is going to love it because it's mostly sales and sales engineers that make their livelihood in technology. So good stuff.
Well, I'm happy to help. I learned a lot going through your sales training, even though I thought I was a very senior seller. So if I can help add value to what you're doing as well and your folks, I'm happy to do so.
Yeah, you are a great coach. All right, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for joining. We will see you again soon.
Thank you.